Welcome back to Master Your Glass with me, Livio, Lauro. Today we're gonna talk about Aperitivo, Bitter, and Amaro. You know, I was at the store the other day and I picked up a bottle, and on the label it actually said L'Aperitivo, Amaro, and Bitter. And the opinions on these three categories can vary. Sometimes they actually even vary from father to son within a producer. But because these three categories have a lot of confusion, I just really wanted to give you my 2 cents on how to really understand the difference between what these three categories are. Far too often, I will open a book or go on a website and they'll talk about Amaro. Oh, Amaro, and Amaro is a great Italian product. And in the picture of Amaro, you'll see maybe a picture of Campari. And so is Campari and Amaro? Is Aperol and Amaro? Are these all one big happy family? Well, stay tuned and stay with me, and we're gonna find out. Well, this is gonna be a long video, but let me cut to the chase in case you really are in a hurry. No, in my opinion, they are not. There are three different categories of beverages. There is the Aperitivo, there is the Bitter, and there is the Amaro. Now, they all share in common that they are Italian or Italian inspired. They all share in common that they have alcohol and that they all have bitters, and they have this flavor profile that the Italians like to call agrumato, which is a citrus flavor profile. However, there are many differences between the three, and so yes, we could make them all one family, but we can't really make them all the Amaro family, or we shouldn't really make them all the Bitter family, and by all means, we should not make them all the Aperitivo family. So let me distill down these herbal citrus liqueurs a little bit more. So these are the Aperitivi. Aperitivi is a family of herbal and citrus liqueurs that are lower in alcohol. In that balance of citrus versus bitter, they like to put more of the citrus notes in the forefront versus their bitter brethren that like to put more of the bitter in the front. And so these ones here will taste a little bit more like orange and grapefruit and blood orange, and give you some of those citrus, lemon, lime notes, in addition to having some bitter notes. I'm gonna go ahead and taste three of the most common ones, or the most popular ones, and let's see what is the difference between the three. So allow me to debunk a little bit some of the confusion that is also coming from these products. These products will typically have very vague verbiage on it, such as ditta specializzata, which means it's a specialized company that makes the product. We know that. Or the date of production, it'll say 1807, 1815, 1821. Well, that's not necessarily the date that they created the product that is in your glass. That is the date that the liqueur company first opened. The liqueur bottle might say 1815, yet the formula might be something that was created a year ago. So just a little bit of that to remind everybody that there is still so much confusion when it comes to these beverages. The first one I have in front of me is Casoni Aperitivo, and I'm going to compare it to Aperol and to Select, which are again part of the same family. Okay, so Casoni has this very nice root and ruby grapefruit flavor profile to it. It's very thin and easy to drink, very simple, not cloying, not big syrup, not big sugar. However, sweet, just not cloying. How does it compare to Aperol, a brand created in 1919 in Padova? Well, you can already tell Aperol just has a little bit more of a red color to it, although it's orange, but it's leaning a little bit more towards the red. And with Aperol, I'm getting a little bit more orange, a little bit more blood orange, a little bit more grapefruit flavor. Maybe just a touch drier than the Casoni, but still very similar. And truth be told, both of them are really, really good. And I wouldn't mind drinking both of these any time of the day. Okay, now before I get too carried away here, Casoni 1814 was 15% alcohol by volume. Aperol was 14% alcohol by volume. The next one I'm going to taste is made in Venice. It's called Select, and it is 17.5 alcohol by volume. Let me go ahead and give this a try, and automatically you will see that it is darker in alcohol. It's starting to get more towards that pomegranate color. This one is the rootiest one of the pack, and it's starting to get a little bit more bitter. Now, obviously, I tasted these before the video, so I put them in an order for a specific reason. So over here, we are starting to kind of put the orange and the grapefruit a little bit on the back, just slightly much, and slightly a bit. And over here, we've now taken and we're putting the herbal and the bitter a little bit more towards the forefront, which is a perfect segue for our next category, which again is bitters. Now bitters, they will in turn take the agrumato, again, that means citrus or citrus notes. It'll take those notes, it'll place them even more in the back, and it will put the bitter in the front, and it'll increase the alcohol level. Why would this be such a big difference? Well, remember, in Italy, we have a famous thing called the Aperitivo hour. And the Aperitivo is, of course, that beverage that you drink before you have lunch or dinner. Because there's really two aperitivos. Sometimes you have an aperitivo at lunchtime. Sometimes you have an aperitivo at dinner time. Well, the alcohol content will vary with what you would be typically drinking before your lunch, where you have to go back to work, or before dinner, where you don't have to go back to work. Okay, I'm going to try the first one, which is Luxardo Bitter Bianco. We all know Luxardo from the world famous maraschino liqueur that they make. This, of course, is clear in color. And a little bit because I just got finished tasting 3 bitter liqueurs prior, and a little because it's a gentler style of bitter. I'm getting just a very delicate, gentle bitter here. And if I were blindfolded, it is a really kind of overlap between the two categories. Now, I am getting a lot more alcohol in this, which, by the way, that alcohol content is 30%, so about twice as much as what's in this area. And also I'm getting a little bit more sweetness. Why am I getting a little bit more sweetness? Because of course these producers here, in order to offset the more bitter flavor that they're putting in it, they have to offset it in order to make it palatable with a little bit more sugar too. So the next one I'm going to try is the bitter Rosso from the Girolamo Luxardo family. Now, interesting fact here is this bitter here is of course red, I'm sure you noticed, but it is also 25% alcohol by volume. So it is 5% lower than the Luxardo Bianco. It's got a really beautiful red color. I'm really enjoying how it reflects through the light. Much more rooty. If I were to compare it to the Bianco had a little more sweetness to it, and I'm not saying I know the sugar content of these because I don't, but the sweetness came through more on the Bianco. Over here on this side, there's a little bit more rootiness, more herbaceousness, more herbal notes, a little bit more medicinal notes. And last but not least, let's try Campari. Campari, of course, was created in 1860 in Milano. The alcohol content of this wonderful product here is 24% alcohol by volume, so just about 1% less than the Bitter Bianco. And it has this also this rich red, almost going towards pomegranate color to it. More orangey notes. and the bitterness kicks in towards the end. So when you drink Campari right after Luxardo, you notice that there's a little bit more citrus agrumato flavor to it, but be patient because about 5 seconds later, a really rich, long, bitter notes comes into place. So really more on the bitter side, really more on the balanced side, and really more on the sweeter side. So now we have determined there's really 3 different styles that come to the bitters liqueur, just like we have defined in the past that there's different styles that come to Amaro. Speaking of Amaro, let's move on to the next one. This is Averna. Amaro Averna was born in Sicily in 1868. You've probably seen a tasting that I've done before on this product. I absolutely adore it. It is a more citrus style of Amaro. It's the style that I like to call pastry because it brings more of those almond pastry flavors that you would find in an Amaro marzipan, which are typically pastry style flavors in it. Just so good. 29% alcohol by volume. Over here on the beginner side of the Amaro spectrum. Moving on over here, I have a Cynar. Now Cynar comes in 2 different recipes. This one is the original. If the label is black, it is 70 proof. That is 35% alcohol by volume. But this one here is 16.5% alcohol by volume. It is the original. Now, again, there's so much to be said about these categories of beverages. A lot of people will say this is a artichoke style of Amaro. The reality is all Amari have a special ingredient in it. So if you start calling this one an artichoke style Amaro, then all of them will become a different style of their own. In my opinion, it's an Amaro. It's an Amaro. It favors artichoke, just like a rabarbaro would favor rhubarb, just like Amaro would favor the orange, and so forth and so on. Cynar is a artichoke dominant style of Amaro. So the sugar content and the bitter content on this one is cranked up in comparison to Averna. Of course, once the producer starts bringing the bitters up or the herbs up, of course, they also have to do that with the sugar. Because Cynar's artichoke has that really nice earthy herbal component to it, of course, adding sugar to it makes it more palatable. So this product here is both sweeter and more bitter and more rich than Averna, which once again, I tasted them before the show, which is why I am going in a specific progression. So let's taste the last one. Okay, so this here is Braulio. It's from 1875. And once again, going back to what I was saying earlier, some people will say it's an Alpine style of Amaro. I just like to say it's an Amaro. It has its own characteristics, just like all the other ones. Created in 1875, and alcohol content of 21%. And let's go ahead and try this one. A lot of little root beer notes, a lot of floral, rosemary, but definitely more on the bitter side. Favoring the bitters versus the sweetness. It's definitely much more dry and a little more, I don't know, you've had a few Amari before type of a flavor profile. So this is pastry style. This is right in between. This is medicinal style. This same progression would happen over here. Hopefully, I've helped you navigate a little bit on the difference of all these products. And hopefully I've clarified a little bit. Again, this is my opinion. Some people would just say this is all one thing. And then if it's all one thing, then how do we know how to make a difference of them? If you enjoyed, hit like and hit subscribe to Master Your Glass with me, Livio Lauro, where you get expert instruction for everyday consumption.